And here we are. We're live, ladies and gentlemen. You're getting a show from the Comic Book Advocates Network. And of course, the network comprises of all these amazing people. And we've actually got one of the founding members of the Advocating Network besides me on the show today. We're going to go around the room like we always do. This is super awesome. Big thanks to Josh Lyman for the awesome new graphics that we're having. Sometimes I can make pretty cool graphics, but it's always nice to see someone else take it on and give it a new, unique feel. And that's awesome. Because again, this isn't my site, this is everyone's site. And Josh thought he could do better, and you know what? He did. All right, so we're going to go around the room first, introducing from parts unknown, the kid, Varian Grant.
Hello, everybody. Varian Grant, founder of Indigo Media, co-publisher at Last Call Comics. I've been making books since 2008. Been going to Comic Cons a long time. So when Rob said he had a show about the logistics of conning, I was careful. I want to know about conning people or Comic Con. I want to know what hat to wear. So I'm happy to be here.
You're good at both, honey. You're good at both.
Both. I'm an expert. So, so happy to be here today. Can't wait to get this conversation underway.
And the globe-trotting Josh Lyman joins us.
Hi, guys. My name is Josh Lyman, and I have been doing a convention circuit for probably around the last 16 plus years, at least for the last, I got to do math here, at least for the last 8 full time, in addition to working in publications from here and there. And I'll leave that for later. But you guys can find me at Art of Josh Lyman on all social media.
And the man who watched Comic Cons become the modern Comic Cons, he's actually watched it grow for decades. Welcome in the wonderful, the amazing Austin Janowski.
Oh, you said my name wrong again, Rob. We're going to fix that. One of these times we're going to say it right. It's Janowski, my man.
Janowski.
But it's okay. Janowski works just as good. As long as you have the Y, not the I, everything's fine. Hi, guys. I'm Austin Janowski. I've been doing comics since 1994. Been doing comic book conventions since before they became the big ones since 1994. Marvel, DC, IDW, Devil's Due, whole bunch of stuff. Just Google my name, you'll find some neat stuff about me, but I'm happy to be here. New setup.
All right, guys. So, let's just dive right into this. Let's get serious about it. So, first, of course, we want to start about logistics. So let's start at the very basic, simple aspect of it. Jaxie, and we can hear the Comic-Con sounds from my son, provided by Jax. So logistically speaking, real simple question. How do you pick what shows to go to? I mean, you start there logistically. What makes a show worth going to? We'll go around because all you guys are seasoned at this, so it's just easier. For me, I pick it on past experience from what I've had actually experienced from the show and what my other friends have experienced. And I've asked about demographics. I go to actually the town and the area it's hosted in, and I look at the demographics of the area, and I determine whether my fan base could be popular there. Are there college students? Are there going to be an older demographic, or will this be a teenage show? I don't typically do well at teenage shows. I don't have any manga. I don't have anything for teenagers. I'm trying to change that. So my portfolio of creation gets bigger so I can appeal to every audience. But for now, I do have to worry about those things. What about you, Varian?
As far as logistics go, I mean, again, echoing what you said, how my friends have done there. If there's you kind of want to figure out the audience before you go. Now, I've never did what you did, which I said I'm going to start looking into the area and beforehand and figuring out, again, is it a college town? Is school in session? That's another big thing, And I just really like getting out to new areas, expanding. Every year we try to tack on 2 or more states that we haven't gone to yet, just to get out there a little bit more. So like last year we had never done South Dakota, so we made sure we got down there, and we kept getting our butts chewed in Indiana early on. We decided to go back to Indiana, got our butts kicked again. But again, I've been told it's a show choice, not so much not the state, but the show choice. So we'll see how it goes next year.
And Josh, what do you got? How do you make those decisions?
I mean, I think we're all kind of in agreement. It'll typically go on past experience. Sometimes it's the town itself and You know, there have been times where you will sit there and the town itself is just, yeah, you made a profit or you had a decent time, but the people there are just rude and you're just like, hey, I'm not coming back. Um, and you focus on that. And sometimes that's one of those things. But I mean, it short and simple, it really comes down to is expense. Does it conflict with another event and does it conflict with my deadlines? That's something that for about a couple of years, I actually didn't worry about deadlines. I was like, oh, I'll work while I'm there. You know, if that's a critical, I'll just do that. But yeah, it's pretty much that. You know, like past experience, is it profitable for me to be there and be away from my studio where I'm not creating? And yeah, that's about it, really.
Austin?
I think they pretty much said everything. It depends on where you are at in your comic book career. If you're just starting out, I would do local, and then as you get a little bit bigger, I would kind of expand within your state. And because expense comes into it quite a bit, you're just starting out, you're paying for quite a lot of what you're doing. But as you get more under your belt and you're expanding in the state, then hopefully you can start going outside of that. You don't want to grow too quickly. You know what I mean? Everyone wants one to do the really big shows. That's a big expenditure. It's hard to get into. I've been lucky enough to do pretty much all the big shows all over the United States over the years. But back then, you know, much smaller. When you're working on things, comic book artists were higher on the food chain for conventions. They were taken care of a little bit better. You know, some expenses were covered between table, hotel, that sort of thing. Not so much what it is nowadays. So that's another thing. It's if you're just breaking in, it's very hard to kind of recoup your money. So from me, yeah, if you're walking away from things you have to work on, how much money are you losing compared to how much you can possibly make at this show? Is a good point that Josh, but also you have to be able to be willing to say, well, this is X amount of money I can afford to lose because I need to get my brand out there. I need the exposure in a new market, and hopefully we'll actually look at what I'm doing, because you're not just there to hopefully you're making money, but you're also making contacts, whether artists, other stores, and hopefully that will garner further, you know, whether they books or signings or whatever down the road. It's just not just sitting down and putting up your banner and just kind of sitting there and waiting. So you have to think of it not just making money, but making contacts and making networking, and hopefully that will help your career down the road. At least that's how I do it.
And travel is a huge thing. Greg is going to be joining us. He's not at his particular position. Oh, there he is. Okay. So Greg is someone who actually travels with me, and he's been around, and we get together. We try to cut our costs down. And I wanted him especially on this one because he's done the life. He travels. So Greg, introduce yourself. The question that we're dealing with too right now is, how do you pick a show? What are the logistics behind picking a show? And I know you actually have very specific parameters on what makes a show worth your time.
Sure. So, hey, everyone, my name is Greg Krebeck. I'm kind of a virgin when it comes to these things. I don't know what you call this, a live stream or a podcast or whatever, but this is really my first time doing it. So
welcome
Rob,
aboard.
Thanks for including me. So, yeah, I've been doing shows for, this is like, well, would have been my fourth year before everything kind of changed. I started out doing local shows. Nobody really knows who I am. I just kind of draw and then show up and put my stuff out, and hopefully people come by and say nice things and buy stuff. So as far as my display, I kind of learned, you know, just from what other people do as far as my banner, my backdrop, and what I put on my table and stuff like that. When it comes to expenses, obviously local shows, anything that we can drive to within striking distance of a car or a day's drive is usually our top priority. When you start looking outside of that immediate region, you know, I look at, you know, history of the show, how many people go, what kind of people attend, trying to make sure that what I bring with me is a good fit for that audience, so I stand the best chance of doing well and covering my expenses. You know, I kind of plan my year out, obviously. I try to make sure that if I'm traveling from week to week and back to back shows. You know, where am I going to stay in between? Am I staying at somebody's house? Am I staying in a hotel? So trying to plan as far ahead on my expenses, especially the big ones when it comes to like your hotel and your flights and shipping boxes and stuff like that. I try to consolidate as much as I can.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and okay, so here's the big question. So traveling, what makes a show worth traveling to, honestly? Like, how do you guys determine, because I mean, you're now talking about the logistics behind a hotel, travel, and even food. People don't really realize that. And me and Greg will go to Walmart, find microwavable food to cut down expenses. Eating at any place every night is going to cut into your profit. And this is, a lot of people treat going to conventions as a party away from their families. They go out drinking for the weekend. It's not always the best thing for your bottom line. It's not always the best thing for your creative flow on Sunday when you show up hungover and spend the day under your table. So that's one of the things that you got to come into. And you see, I'm sure Austin's seen very few people get drunk that are continued to go through the rotations over the years. You kind of learn that you have to be careful. Would you agree with that, Austin, starting with you?
Kinda.
I mean, we all know the guys who always get drunk no matter what.
Yeah, well, see, but so from 94 to about 2005, the after parties is where you really network, because you had the artists and you had the editors and you had the publishers and you had other people who ran shows all together mingling. And I'm talking like, reps from Marvel, DC, and the whole nine. And that's where you got your work. That's where you got you didn't talk while you were at the table. You talked afterwards. You talked over drinks. I remember I was at Heroes Con, and I was talking with God, I can't even remember, Brandon, some guy from DC. But I go and I sit down with my drink, and I have Bernie Wrightson on my left, and I have I've gone a total blank. The guy who did Hellboy. What the hell's his name?
Mike Mignola.
Thank you. He's sitting on my right. And they're talking, and I said, I'm sorry, do you mind me sitting here? And I'm like, that's fine. So they're talking amongst themselves, and they're asking me what they think about the current industry. So I'm having a 3-week conversation with them too. And then Chris Claremont, he comes over, he sits down, we starts talking, and then it kind of grew around, and you never know. And was lucky enough to be friends with Bernie until he passed away. You know what I mean? So to answer your question, Rob, yes. You shouldn't be drinking if you're there specifically because you have a lot of commissions. There's a lot of people that go there and they have commissions. Like Sanford Green is one of those guys coming up where he gets bombarded by commissions there and then so on. So he's always drawing afterwards. You know what I mean? You see the artists doing their sketchings. And no, you don't want to drink a lot. But Sanford never did. He was one of those people that didn't drink to access. They didn't come to party. They came there because they wanted to network and they wanted to go ahead and try to make those connections. Some people just want to go because they're there just because they want to be there and they want to mingle and they want to get drunk and say that they actually partied with such and such and so because it's a celebrity aspect of it too. Being able to say that I went and drank with this person or I did this with this person. Is it good for your bottom line? No, but back in the day, that was business as usual. That's how you did it. It's not how it happens now, but back then that's pretty much what it was. So, but again, the whole convention aspect of it is completely changed. And the dichotomy of what's it all involved is completely different from what it used to be. So.
And how do you pick the show? What's worth traveling to for you personally?
Nowadays, it's the town that I want to visit because I like going and wandering around afterwards between the food and the architecture and everything like that. But I'm over 25 years doing this, so my choice is a little bit different. You know what I mean? We were lucky enough to go to Chicago last year. That was the first year I was actually able to do a Chicago show. I was supposed to do Wizards a few years, but it never happened. So being able to go to the show and then go to the local places to eat was amazing. So that's how I'm picking things. Not so much on the financial aspect of it, which by and large, C2E2 is fantastic, and that has to come to account. But we like going because it's someplace we can go and wander around after the show because we don't really party or drink anymore.
Josh?
Well, as far as my personal choice for a show, 9 times out of 10, it does boil down to those two things. One, three things, I guess. Is it good for if I do it in reverse as far as my priorities? My third priority is networking. But I would say networking. The fans is probably number 2, and then of course the financial aspect. At this point, I've done probably somewhere between 25 and 35 shows a year for the last like 8 years. And so it's one of those things where like there's a lot of travel, and it's like at a certain point you're like, I've already been to this city. I've already been to this side of town in that city, so you start looking for those things. And recently I've started trying to see if I can plan an extra day so I can go to things like, hey, I'm going to go to the Smith Museum, or I'm going to go here or there, so on and so forth, just to make it more of an experience. But Austin's 100% right as far as like networking is concerned. It's changed a little bit, but it's pretty much the same. If you're going in from the industry perspective, you got to go and you got to mingle. As far as like drinking at a con, depends what you're doing at the con. If you're only there to socialize and hang out, then do that. But if it's just a complete dumpster fire and you've already lost all your money and there's absolutely no way, do it in some capacity to not over extend your budget. But we've all seen people that get crazy and then not. There was one guy who used to be on spiced rum nonstop, and it got to a point where he started getting some red eye issues, and he turned his life around and changed it completely. And now he may drink a little, but he doesn't drink as much, and he does more work, and the quality of his work is radically improved. But I think that kind of leads into personal life versus planning for cons. So in short, I'd say, there's the financial aspect. I go for the fans. Like, I love going to Salt Lake City purely for the fans. It's one of my larger groups of people that I know I'm going to see every single year. I'm going to at least see like 20 or 30 people that I always see every year. And that's a little thing. It's almost like a family reunion in that capacity. And with Comic Cons, there's a couple of them that used to be like that too, like Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, Varian, same question. Especially with you having the last Call Girls, the alcoholic themed environment that you do. Do you guys do any after parties? Is that something you guys actually try to do when you're at events? And how do you choose where you're traveling to?
The funny thing is, I got a company called Last Call, and this is the most I've ever drank in my entire life, like this year. I've been shutting in, so I'm like, I need something. But I'm not a big drinker, and in fact, and still to this day, like we had my son's birthday party in last August, and there's still beer left from that party. It's almost August. I do not drink. It's a 24 pack. I do not drink, but how I pick a con, or not the logistics, right? But the after parties. We do go to the after parties. Some of them depends on the show. Typically, I don't know if it's just because I feel more at home, but if the show is in my home state, then I will trek down to the after party. Or if I know people who are going to be down there, for example, if I know that Josh is going to go down there and maybe grab dinner at the bar, that just so happens to coincide where the after party is at, why not? Because the worst thing that's going to happen is you might meet somebody down there who you didn't have access to on the convention floor. That's the way I had access to Jim Starlin a couple years ago. He was just at the after party, sitting at a table collecting drink and draw tickets, and he wasn't using them, but he was getting them all. And it's like,
have a drink.
Yeah, what gives? What gives? He just stashing them. He doesn't. Just like, you're not going to use those tickets. But yeah, and then like you said, hauling the booth girls down. I use booth girls at my table. They're normally my wife and friends. Where I'm like, hey, you know what? It's kind of weird. I go up to some of my wife's friends and say, I bet you look nice in a miniskirt. Like, what? Yeah. But I take them all. It's usually friends, because I can put friends in hotel rooms together and they don't freak out. They're not thinking that I'm trying to get in their pants, or I'm trying to get them in a hotel room next to us for some reason, some strange reason. So yeah, we. But as far as the after parties, I don't I don't go to as many as I would like. I did go to the Wizard after party. Last year, I think it was 2019. They had an after party at a bar, and I could not believe it because it was free alcohol and free pizza.
Wow.
And it was like, what? And,
Wizard took some time last year, and they tried to put together some free after parties that actually, made people want to come to them.
Yeah, we went, and it was standing room only. You should ask Randy about the after party scene, though, Randy Zimmerman, because he is the reason why Marvel no longer sponsors after parties at conventions. So you should get him in here on that one. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I mean, I would also say this when it comes to after parties. Remember this, people. If you're gonna go to the after party, it is still a sort of a professional environment. The stuff that you do with that after party could have ramifications in the morning. So and even past the after party, like
Oh my God! You punched out Mike Mignola. What did you do?
Yeah. I mean,
I just wanted to see if he was right-handed or not.
Let's get Rob's blood boiling here for a second. There are some people who use the after party as their predator ground. Wait. Okay, yeah.
Rob's a dangerous slope.
Yeah. But so you be careful. It's not a place to flirt. I know it might seem like it is, but you gotta be careful. You got to be careful when you do that. When you do the after parties, I don't think Josh, you don't do many, do you? After parties?
Well, I'll leave it short, and then we can get Greg's 2 cents on this. But I try not to go to after parties that are actually organized and ran by the events. Mostly because 9 times out of 10, then I have to sit there and keep my show face on. As far as that's concerned, like, how's the show? And I'd be like, well, I had no sales and no commissions. I'm doing great. No, I got to be like, no, it's not bad. It could be better, but life goes on. How's your day? Oh yeah, great. We've got lots of photo sales. Oh, well, that's fantastic. I'm glad to hear it. But if I'm corporately signed for something, then of course I'll make some appearances as far as that's concerned. In contrast, I will say, for me, I'd say it's the pre-parties that I will always remember, like the night before party, where everybody's like, we're not going to drink into craziness because we have to start off a long weekend. I mentioned Pittsburgh before. When we had those, they rented out the penthouse at the hotel that was, sponsoring the con. And we just sat there, and they gave us free booze and free food, but they gave us tiles, and all of the tiles we had to draw on, or paper plates, or whatever have you, were going to be thrown through the charity auction. So it was free art, but hey, it was art for trade. And that's one of those real networking situations where I still constantly look at photos from back before Pittsburgh was bought by Wizard. But yeah, an after party 9 times out of 10 isn't going to be, I'd say more like 9.5 times out of 10 isn't going to be what decides me going to a Comic-Con. Greg, what about you, dude?
I don't do a whole lot at home, so I always thought when I go to shows, like, that's my chance to go out and like you said, see the town and just go to a place I've never been before. When I'm home, I'm usually drawing on the nights where my friends are out doing stuff because I feel guilty. I feel like I should be home creating. So when I'm home here in Florida, I'm drawing when other people are having fun. So I always have aspirations of going to the after parties and the pre-parties and stuff. But to be honest, I am so whipped. I don't see how you guys, I don't know if I just can't hang anymore because I'm getting old. But I go back to the hotel room and my feet hurt, my eyes hurt. I'm sick of my own voice from talking to people all day long. And I don't really drink. So I might go and say hello just for a little bit of social interaction. If I get invited with some friends, I might go real quick. But as far as staying up late and having drinks and stuff, I try not to do anything in this show where I'm going to pay the price, like you said, the next day. I want to make sure I'm at my best every time I've got to talk to somebody. I actually have to make a conscious effort to have this stupid smile on my face just in case a potential prospect sees me from across the room. I don't want them to see me frowning or just, doing something stupid. My friend Richard from Stabby Bunny always likes to take photos of me without me knowing to show me if I'm doing something dumb or not. So I try to
That's definitely one of those dues that people don't talk about.
Smile.
Having to be on when you're at a con.
Yeah, but there's a dangerous slope to that, having to be in character when you're at a con. I'm sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Because
No,
this
you're right.
logistics, I actually don't want to get into that aspect of it just because that does play into our second part where we talk about being a good neighbor. So I do want to hit the logistics first before we travel down. The one thing I do want to talk about with Greg, mentioning that Greg's been in hotel rooms with me, and there's two different Robs that go on the floor, and on the road, and he's met both. There's Daddy, who goes back to the hotel room, listens to Family Guy, laughs his ass off. I play with Jax, we calm him down, and that's and then I'll be with Greg. And then there's the Rob shows up at 2 a.m, midnight, 1 a.m. after getting back from a different event. So here's something unique I do that a lot of places that will play into, whether I go there or not, believe it or not. I look for the fetish underground scene in a particular area because I create a book about fetish. And weeks before, I will arrange special signings. And Greg knows this. Sometimes I'll do better at one night at a signing than the entire weekend. And because I'm going to an audience that wants my wares. So that is something I also sometimes look at. But again, it does have to, I have a co-parenting situation that is flexible in the wrong way. Not flexible for me, but flexible on the other side. So there have been times I've arranged things and I've had to cancel them because I had Jax with me. And I've thought about leaving Greg with Jax, but I just feel bad for Greg. I couldn't do it to him. He's a nice guy. Jax is a lot. And it's funny because Jax and Greg get along well, but I worry that sometimes Jax is just going to jump right on top of Greg while he's sleeping just to wake him up. And I found out from Greg, I've apparently started snoring, and I've actually started getting medical looked at because that's a bad sign health-wise. And I didn't know it because, I guess everyone who's used to me around here don't really mention it. But yeah, that's something that's only developed in the last couple of years. So, it's wild to think that when we share rooms with people, they're seeing us for the first time. They give you new insight onto habits you might have or things that are going on with you. Mm-hmm. Luckily, a lot of it just seems to be a throat injury that's still healing, and it's been causing me a little more problems. So, but I have to have it looked at, and I would have never known that if it weren't for Greg. So, sometimes you learn things about yourself while you're roommating with someone, especially when they get to know you a little better. Like I went on the road with the Hudson, the dreaded dinosaur creator, and this guy ordered anchovies for pizza. And don't do that. If you're sharing a room with someone, don't bring disgusting smelling food into the room. I know one time I farted and Greg was so mad at me. He's like, "Why would you do that?" I was like, "What am I supposed to do with it? I had to fart. This happens." It's sharing a room. You get to know each other in weird ways. And I'm sure Greg's like, I didn't need to know that about you. But I do want to move on to the next logistic question. And this one actually makes sense. What's going on, Krista? What do you
When you go, everybody can see your boobs now. She's popping in to say hi, but
hi.
Yeah, she's on her way to leave, but yeah. So.
Okay, so let's talk about the important thing: traveling together. How important is it to try to cut down that cost, drive versus fly, and who do you travel with, and why do you travel with them? So for me, I'll start off real quickly. I try to travel with anyone who will travel with me. I know Greg's a little afraid of my driving now. I grew up in New York. It is what it is, especially if I'm hungry. I'm going to speed, but I got a speeding ticket this last year for the first time in my life, and now I have to behave for the next 2 or 3 years. So Greg will be happy to hear that. They finally done caught me. They finally caught me. So I'll be a little more behaved. But yes, sharing that ability, if you can do it. Now, logistically speaking, and we didn't talk about this will be the next topic, what you're packing will affect how easy it is to share a ride with someone. And I do want to talk about Varian with this one, start off Varian, because you travel a lot with a lot of different people.
Yeah.
So take me down that, because you don't have a simple setup. You have one of the most complex setups I've seen that actually, I look at it and I'm like, that's got to be 5 hours of setup right there.
We got it down. We got it down to a lot quicker than that. But those first couple rounds are dicey. I have actually for the last 2 years, because of medical injuries, have not been able to drive long distances. So luckily got Dreaded Dinosaur, Eric, go a lot of places with. It is you learn to break down stuff as much as you possibly can. to a smaller, like if you can stuff 3 bins into one, get it done. We've gotten 4 people and all of our stuff in a trailer. In Eric's car. When it comes to traveling, though, um, I didn't get the chance to mention that about the hotel rooms. I heard you guys talking about it. You say you will know the person. You will. Unfortunately, like a lot of times, because of the amount of room I had, you would think, "Oh, sweet man, you're gonna be in a room with models. Awesome." And most people think, "Well, my wife is there, bro. It's not gonna be." But some of these girls, they have no problem with just getting up, like walking around. It's ridiculous. So make sure you're not a horn dog, get yourself in trouble. Traveling, same thing. Package light again. You really need to bring that extra suitcase. With bringing the booth girls, I have a problem with. They hear about the after parties. They think Jason Momoa is gonna be there, and they bring their entire wardrobe. So that's an extra briefcase, extra suitcase. When it comes to you mentioned driving or flying, I drive everywhere because it's just cheaper. Because if I try to pull all of my crap on a plane, and I say a lot, I mean, my backdrop is not a photographer, it's a DJ booth display. It doesn't break down that small, so it's easier for me to throw it in the back of my van, which is why I drive a minivan, by the way, because I need a separate transportation. I get get yourself a van, get yourself a traveling partner. I travel with my wife, so that, I mean, that can kind of suck, she's in the car with me all the time, so I travel that way, and make sure that your car is serviced before you go in, oil changes, all that good stuff. You don't want to be the guy on the side of the road that's to call Austin and say, "Hey man, I'm 60 miles outside of the con. Could you come and get me? My car broke down."
And they've done that to me before.
Yeah.
And I have come and got them, yes. Yeah. But I make sure the money's good first. I'm like, so how much money you got for gas? Because back then you're poor. You know what I mean? When I was first 5 or so years, I drove just because I was poor and I could not fly. I adult now. We fly, but we had 1 or 2 people, friends of mine, that would try to do shows with me, but I kind of did my own thing. But when I was there, we would always say, "All right, who's got a hotel? You got a hotel? You got a room? All right." Then we get like 8 of us pack in. Like, here's $20. You know what I mean? I'll take this corner of the floor. You know what I mean? And you would sleep, and then you would draw, or you would do whatever, and that's how you did your show. That's how you saved money. You know what I mean? You order a pizza, you get 1 or 2 slices, that sort of thing. Basically, you make sure you had change of underwear, but your clothes was pretty much, you had 1, maybe 2 outfits. Now that I'm doing shows, we'll fly or whatever. We fly the night before, so we're able to enjoy. We're not rushing. We can set up early. But even then, we don't pack a whole lot of clothes because you need bring a lot of your stuff. You got your 50-pound, thing on the scale that you got to make. So you okay, I have to bring X amount of comic book stuff. All right, how much clothes can I add to that to get under the 50 mark? And that's pretty much how I pack and do my travel nowadays. And my wife is militant about that. We got the little scale that we hold up to make sure. I'm like, 4 ounces. What do we got to throw out? All right, toothpaste. We'll buy while we're there. I think we're good. And that's kind of how we do our packing for our travel. But yeah, back then, not so much of the travel aspect, driving with people, but when we were at the shows, we kind of hooked up. Like, all right, who's got a room? How much do we make? Will we pool our money for food and hotel? And that's pretty much what we did, because we needed enough money to go to the after parties and have a few drinks to be able to network. And that was very important. So everything else was kind of divvied up into a pool, and then we kind of was able to pay X amount for each person. So at least that's what we used to do. I don't know about you, Josh, but that's us poor people when we were breaking in. That's what we did.
Oh, for sure.
Josh, that was a pass to you.
Well, I wasn't entirely sure. I was like, I don't want to overstep. Yeah, I mean, I still drive to shows occasionally, but I recently started modifying that behavior because hey, I didn't have a car. I do now, but for a couple of years I didn't. So it really just came down to the logistics of doing the math, and it was like, okay, is it this much for a rental and then gas both ways? or I can get a plane ticket. And so, a lot of course, rideshare has definitely evolved the ability to do travel back and forth between shows and things like that. You don't have to get a cab everywhere. It's a lot more convenient as far as that's concerned. But yeah, I just break down the travel expense itself if I'm flying. If I'm going solo. I was going to say flying solo, but more metaphor for that one. And sometimes it works out great, and then sometimes it's one of those things where you fly to a show, and then the next show is literally one state over, and there's 2 days in between the shows, and you go, do I want to ride with somebody, or do I want to get a rental and drive? You have to work the logistics for that. As far as weight and things like that, I have a couple of things here and there, but one of the things I really started focusing on was making sure none of my stuff would get damaged. And so I made the investment into some Pelican Air cases. And overall, they're actually the same price as standard suitcases. But they're a lot more durable. Somebody was saying something.
No, I was just saying that's actually really smart. We had thought about doing stuff like that now that we've more books, because we used to ship things, you know what I mean? Just ship it to the hotel ahead of time when we had things printed or whatever. And that way we didn't have to do a whole lot. Just specifically because, I mean, you see the airline people, how they treat the baggage. It's like, oh, God, is it going to be okay? And that's very important, especially if you have your artwork and everything that are in the suitcases. So that's I'll have to actually look into it. Thank you.
As an aside and not a plug, they're actually just under the price of a standard suitcase that's actually going to survive and not break. So I'd recommend looking into those. Plus, they're a lot easier to manage with back and forth travel. But when you're traveling with other people, that's its own monster. We all have our own little peccadillos, like how we wake up or how long we take a shower. Dreaded Dinosaur, for example, I make a joke that he takes a 2-hour shower first thing in the morning. Reality, it's more like maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes. But for me, it's unusual. I'm like, why is the shower so cold? We're like, oh, it's because he got up at 5 a.m. when we be at the show at 10. And it's like, joking a little bit, but at the same time, you end up figuring out the people that you want to stay with over the years and the people you don't want to. Occasionally, there's going to be shows that are larger, like C2E2 or Emerald or New York, where you're like, you know what? I don't care if I don't like you. I just need that. What Austin's saying. I just need that little bit of space to work and draw and go to sleep. And you make your adjustments for it. I figured out little shortcuts and things like this. Eric and I, we both have. Where we're driving to a show or we got a rental, we'll purposely go and find Walmart, and we've got like a standard order of stuff that we get. We got pillows, for a $4 pillow, so we don't have to worry about having crappy pillows, that we're just going to leave at the hotel, and we get our basic necessities of food and drink and whatever have you, and you're good to go. But in short, travel has definitely evolved over the years, but surprisingly, it just comes down to sometimes is logistics. I know a lot of people that are they're married or they have kids or they're in a significant relationship of some kind, and they always want to bring the person. And I'm always slightly cynical, and I'm like, well, yeah, if they're going to help, absolutely, by bringing them all in. It's a great business expense, but there's always a fine line between vacation and things like that when it comes to significant other relationships for that. But
I do want to add something before
jaded on that.
I will say, going the day before, when it comes to flying, the price between the two really might be cheaper if you're flying in on a Thursday morning compared to a Thursday night or Friday morning.
This is true.
And it allows you to go in and you relax, and you can put your stuff where it needs to be set up. The hotels will normally, let you in early, which is not so much of a problem, and then you can just relax and get focused, plan your weekend. You can walk the show floor and see, okay, here's the publishers, here's the retailers, and so you have a mental map of where you want to walk and go. This way you're not getting pushed around by the crowds, and then you end up in a corner somewhere and you can't get back to where you want to go, like in New York. You know what I mean? So giving yourself a little extra time, whereas you're investing in maybe an extra day of hotel, but it's going to save you, I think, mentally and everything else, that ability to do so. You know what I mean?
Definitely helps.
Greg. I do know that Greg does something unique. He actually ships his stuff.
Yeah.
And he has
Also was
it
talking
down
about
to like literally he has the labels ready to go home as soon as it's getting there. It's within the box. He's already ready to go, and he flies with like a suitcase maybe or a book bag, and that's it, right, Greg?
Yeah, so I have a system for shipping my prints, so they're packaged in a way where they usually don't get damaged. I've never had a problem. Actually, the first time I did it, I had a problem, but I figured out what it was. So I ship usually 2-3 boxes ahead of time, and then the FedEx people will print out return labels. So whatever I don't sell, just slap the labels on, schedule the delivery. The guy will come pick it up at the hotel the next day, and gets back to me 3 or 4 days later if I'm coming home. Sometimes if I'm doing back to back, I can just ship them to the next city. So that's pretty easy. But yeah, I travel with a big, long kind of body bag thing for my backdrop. And then I put a couple odds and ends in that piece. It's usually like 35, 40 pounds at the most. And then I have a backpack that's got like my equipment and incidentals and stuff like that. I might bring an extra suitcase, but if I can put my clothes in my display bag and not be overweight, I'll do it that way too. And I also have to tell the airlines that I'm carrying golf clubs. Otherwise, they're going to charge you for like oversize and stuff like that. So,
you ever thought about putting a golf club in there so they can't say anything to you in case they look?
No, I've never had anybody open it. Like, no, I don't believe you. You just have to say that. Sorry.
Hi, Kitty.
Hi.
It's just a liability thing. So, if you just sign a thing that says this is golf clubs in case something gets damaged, they're not liable. That's it.
Okay. Good. All right. So one final point before we talk about con etiquette, and that's like Josh had talked about it, the pillows. Do you guys plan beforehand? And me and Greg will do this. Where's the Walmart? Where's a place to eat? You guys ever do that before a show so you don't get to an area and just be like, well, where am I? What do I have? Because I spend time, and Greg knows this, mapping out the areas, and I'll tell him, no, I know there's places over here, there's places over there. Do you guys do that and pick your hotels to be closer to places you can eat and get supplies, as opposed to trying to get really close to the convention where it's always more expensive?
I do. I go by the convention. I do that now, just because both of us we don't have the best legs and knees anymore. So walking mile after mile after mile, because when you're at the show, you're not leaving your artwork right there, so you have to bring it back with you. You know what I mean? So that's something to think about. So we always try to get hotels pretty close. I like being surprised about where the restaurants and everything are because we like trying new stuff like that. And usually if there's restaurants, you can find a CVS or something. So for me, no, we don't really plan accordingly. But then again, we go the day before, we can kind of have time to snoop around if we need to. So I don't know about you guys.
For me, it kind of varies on the city, but I would say at this point, it's one of those all the locations I've gone. I've been at least once before, and I have a fairly decent memory of what was good and what was bad. And I try to find experiences that are like unique to that area. But occasionally, you're just looking for Denny's. You're just like, give me the pancake, all you can eat special, and some cheese fries, and let's just get this over with. Mm-hmm. But I would say, as far as research, I talk to the people at the show, because they're going to be the ones that know. And if you got a bunch of people that are all feeling the same thing, then you're going to go. Local artists, local fans, they're typically not going to steer you in the wrong direction. And then other times it's just like, yo, man, I want some Mexican, but I don't want like Taco Bell Mexican or Don Pablo Ton Taco, whatever, And so you go and research. You go do some Google, and you look at your ratings, and you look at how far it is from where you're staying, and you take it from there. But, I guess in short, it's just really based on your experience, how you choose to experience the city.
Varian?
Well, when it comes to hotels, we used to do this thing where my wife's grandparents worked at Doubletree. So, and they got every Hilton brand hotel at employee discount, not friends and family, at employee discount, which was really nice. um, so we would definitely enjoy that. I mean, I've stayed in suites for $35 for 3 days, which is great. And very early on, we would share the wealth. I would ask anybody else, hey, do you want a room? Because we're going to get two. And then that ended up, they retired, so we couldn't do that anymore. But now when it comes to hotels, we try to get somewhat close. We don't want to be 20, 30 miles out. But what I've discovered is that you can get the same hotel, same chain, just maybe, 10 miles away for half the price. And because these hotel managers, they understand the convention's coming in town, and they're like, hey, it's in demand. We're going to raise the price. And so you end up paying more. Now, if it's worth it to you, it might be. It's been worth it to me a few times. I've taken on the chin and I've paid to stay across the street from the convention. But those are shows that I know I'm going to make that money back. I'm not going to, lose it. And you guys, look, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. I've seen big publishers, okay, actually send their employees to or their talent to crap hotels. So don't be ashamed. Don't be that guy thinking, oh, I gotta stay in the Ritz. I gotta stay in the, the Marriott over here. That might be where the after party is. That might be the host hotel. But I know some, big names in the indie industry who go stay in the, American Lounge, which I don't recommend. But they go stay there, and that's for a whole weekend. So don't try to go somewhere just because you think that's where the big wigs are staying. Chances are they might not be.
I had an Airbnb in Long Beach where it was a pull-out single bed from a chair. I didn't even know they made these things before that. But it was like, you know what? It's close. It's 4 miles. It's easy walking. Let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like $120 for 4 days. I was like, yeah, I'll take it.
Greg, was that a cat that flew past? Was that it?
Yeah.
His kitty likes attention.
She only wants something to do with me when I'm on the phone.
Oh, okay. I was like, either that or he's got a horrible case of shadow people in his house. And I can see them.
That's funny.
The frighten us.
It's time to move.
So, Greg, what about you? How do you choose your hotel destination?
I'm with these guys. There's certain cities where, after going once or twice, you learn that, it's either worth it or it's not worth it to stay here or to stay there. There's some shows where, it's just easier and it's not that much more money to stay right across the street from, where you're staying. Others, when you start looking at a hotel rooms to book and you're like, man, what's going on in the city where things are this expensive? I start thinking about, okay, if I stay over here, how much is the Uber? How many Ubers do I have to take? How much is that going to be? And you can check all that beforehand, when you're scheduling rides, you can kind of get an idea of how much your Uber is going to be before you even travel. So I kind of factor all that stuff in. Or if I've got a car, do I have to, drive every day? Do I have to pay to park? What's traffic like? So all these things are kind of rolling around my head. It really depends on the size of the city and what the hotels are like, what the downtown is like. I will lug my stuff. I think I lug my stuff maybe a mile. When I did Awesome Con in DC, I stayed like a mile away, and I'm like, I'm not paying for an Uber. I'm carrying this home. And it was like Sunday after the show. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I try to factor in the distance and how motivated I am. Or if I feel like I didn't make as much as I thought I should make or wanted to make, I get angry at myself and I refuse to Uber. I'm like, I'm just walking the 5 miles back. I don't care. I don't deserve to get an Uber.
So there is not to plug a company here, but there is another type of ride share company. It's not for people. It's called Roadie, where it will pick up your items and drive them for you. It's usually supposed to be destination based. So, hey, I'm going to Chicago. I'll make some extra money. And you can You put your own price in. ROADIE. You put your own price in, and they will somebody can take your job, and they'll come take your stuff, and they'll drive it where you got to go. I've used it twice. Once to pick up something for me, and again to taking stuff to a con, and it worked out very well for me. So that might be something you guys might be interested in if you're doing it.
Could be a good side hustle. I got a truck now.
Yeah. Yeah, you can be a roadie driver.
Take my guitar downtown. Okay.
We have a few things that we didn't talk about that I do just want to put out there because we are going to switch gears now. Gas versus flying, that can determine what you're going to do. Gas can, at a high point, gas could make flying so much cheaper and so much more economical. Parking, as Greg had said, can alter all decisions. There are some places, like any show in Atlanta is going to be torture because it's like city prices and it's just horrible. I got a cheap hotel because it wasn't Dragon Con. So we actually stayed at a very nice hotel for like $60 a night. It was the Marriott. I think, no, it's the Hilton right over there, the big Hilton. And we were only $60 a night. It wound up being parking that found out to be the bigger problem for the weekend, as opposed to actually just going to this event. Luckily, there's free handicap parking. So the one time being a cripple played into my advantage it helped me save. But a lot of people don't have that advantage.
We call it Eric's superpower.
Yeah, Eric has it too. Yeah, I mean, like even down at SuperCon we had it, and this last year at SuperCon, no one did fantastic. Even Eric wasn't happy with the numbers. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great, and it was definitely one of those things. If we had parking, that would have really messed everything up. Not having that parking, and you share a room with 3 or 4 guys, sometimes guys and girls. That's a very common thing. Food can be one of those things that can top off, especially drinking. I know everyone likes to get their drink, but go to 7-Eleven and buy your drink as opposed to going to a bar. If you're going to go out for the night, get a beer on your way and do the brown bag and just get a little bit happy. And then when you're at the bar, like everyone said, don't get drunk, sip the beer. Get your buzz on and just sit there and maintain the buzz.
And can I add to that, Rob, just a second? That's mainly for people who are, on our side of the table, because you mentioned getting your drinks and everything. They don't really bother with us when we come in, as long as they're not being obnoxious with it, bringing in our own drinks from outside. But like, try to buy your pop or your soda, whatever you're gonna get, whatever you call it in your area. Get that at the local convenience store. Don't get it at the con. And the closer you are to downtown getting it, the more it's gonna cost, no matter what city you're in. It's gonna be extremely costly.
Get those apps that tell you what's on sale, where, find out your CVSs are. Walmart's usually your best go-to, Walmart or Target. Those are going to be your lifeblood on the road. They're going to give, like Josh said, $4 pillows if you need extra pillows. Me and Greg stayed at a place. We got vinegar because the place stunk. Remember that one? We actually got cups and vinegar and put it all throughout the room. And that's sometimes things you got to do. You stay at some cheap. I've stayed at places where I wouldn't go underneath the pillows. I mean, underneath the comforter. Me and Jax right on top of the bed, on a towel. We didn't even shower. It was that type of place where you were afraid to shower in the place. And I held my son. He wasn't allowed to leave me the whole night. He woke up with like skin prints of me holding on to him because I wouldn't let him move away from me. But that's the life. Until we get to be like Austin, where we're invited guests to every show. You got to struggle, and Austin went through that time period. It's not like Austin didn't pay his dues doing the same thing. So when you're first starting, and you're the worst thing you can do is ever try to treat yourself. Well, I'm going to treat myself to this hotel. No, this is a business. Treat it like a business. Everything has to be a bottom line. How is it affecting your profitability? If you're not looking at it like that, you're not going to last in this industry. You're going to be forgotten overnight because you're just not going to be able to afford to travel anymore. And if you're only doing your home shows, what's the point?
Yeah.
And like Varian said, you got to go out of your comfort zone. You got to find new areas. And you got to expand the brand. If you're not expanding your brand into new areas, you're going to dry up real quick unless you're one of those people who can put out a new product every 6 months. As a comic book creator, as artists, I know you guys can change with the trends. So that's a lot easier. It's actually easier to change to the hotter items sometimes. If you're doing fan art, that's a lot easier. If you're an artist who does original art, you're in the same boat as a comic book creator. So that's the tips I can give to the rest of the logistics. Go ahead, Barry.
Well, Rob, my greatest betrayal came at at the hands of a writer friend of mine who was We went to New York Comic Con and he parked. And as we were leaving out, I seen the sign that had the times and the prices listed. And we're like super close to the Javits Center. And I'm reading his house. I'm like, hey, that says a lot of money to park here. We shouldn't park here. He's we're fine. And we go into the convention center. We have great time. I hang out with at the time Mike Turner was still alive. Mike Turner, Stan Lee. It was great. Well, when we left, I on the way back to the back to the parking structure, I decided to stop for a cigarette break. I don't even smoke. I said, I'm gonna stand out here and hang out with her. A friend of ours that came with us, and we'll just hang out. You get the car, it's fine. When you pull out, we'll jump in the car. He came out. He pulled up. He was very upset. Parking was $50. $50. We had been parked for maybe 2.5 hours. Greatest betrayal of my life was not paying that because I let them to pay it. I knew what they were going to do. I seen the prices. So make sure that you don't get an asshole like me to travel with who's like, ooh, that parking is a little expensive. I'm not paying that.
Oh no, Greg knows I'll park 5 miles away and walk it. Greg's like, I'll pay it. Damn it, just park in there. Stop driving around.
I can
That's
tell.
One thing we do sometimes. We'll research in advance. If we know it's a larger city, we'll pull out like Parking Panda and stuff and be like, okay, what's the cheapest option? I'm gonna drop you off today and walk in, and then tomorrow you're gonna walk in. You know, stuff like that.
I can tell Greg has PTSD from dealing with Rob. Look at him. That's a broken man.
The one thing I can tell you guys, the best thing I've ever done was become friends with a guy who's got a handicap sticker.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, and he does it.
Me too. No.
He's like, we can't park here. And I'm like, sure we can. I got this. He's like,
Yeah.
And I forget every time. I'm like, this is fantastic.
My dog needs to make mine permanent. She keeps giving me these little placards that run out. It's like giving me a power and taking it away every couple. I'm like, no, I need this forever. So, yeah.
all right, guys, it's time to talk about the important thing. And this will be sitting for the second hour on purpose. How do you be a good actual neighbor to someone who's at a con? Because the worst thing you could be is a bad neighbor. We could talk about barking today, the barkers at a show. We can talk about the perfume lady that we all hate. We can talk about cosplayers. I know we're on a treaty with cosplayers, but I'm sorry, we got to be open and honest about what cosplayers can do to your vibe. And we're going to talk about, and this is going to get Greg's blood boiling a little bit. The dreaded wall of fan art. Oh, the shadow it casts on everybody. Greg's wall of doom that he puts up 50 feet in the air. But we're going to talk about all that. And we're going to talk about how to be a good neighbor to everyone else. So I'm going to start off with the real thing that we came to talk about. What makes you angry about the people next to you? What is something that you tell someone to never do? Only pick one thing. And then we'll go around to see everything. I'll start off. Don't be a cosplayer who comes to hang out at a show when you're put in Artist Alley or any other place that someone else has paid money to be there. You want to play your music. You want to make a big show of it. You're not there for money. I don't care if you're an invited guest or not. If you're affecting anyone's bottom line, you're an asshole. There's no way around it. Don't do that. Don't affect anyone else's ability to make money. That's a simple rule of going to these cons. What do you got? What do you got, Josh?
Oh, I got a list.
Oh, do you? All right, go for it.
All right. Some of this stuff is just basic common sense, guys, but keep in mind that you're basically trapped in a 6 foot to 8 foot cage for somewhere between 2 days and 3 days, sometimes even 5 days, depending on what the show is. So there are little peccadillos that we all have, but like some of these are really basic, and I'm just going to cover them super fast, and then I'm not going to harp on them. We can expand if we want. It's up to you guys. I don't care. Don't put your stuff outside your space. Don't take your canvases and stick them in my area. Don't put your portfolios 3 inches onto my table. Yes, I will be that person because I paid for my space. Adjust accordingly. As far as that's concerned, hey, don't poach customers at other tables. Don't like, oh, hey, you like Star Wars? Let me show you Star Wars. Or interrupt their conversation that they're talking about something and be like, oh, well, this is what I think about it. And bring it in. Yes, you can be cordial and friendly as long as you have that relationship with your neighbor, but hey, this is a business. Once again, don't set up your rig to intentionally block your neighbor's art unless they do it first. If they're sitting there with the little box setups and they've got their art displayed into your area, and people keep going, hey, this is this, I think it's okay to block that. But that's my personal opinion. Don't leave open food waste in spaces that is shared. Don't leave your half-eaten, rotten tomatoes and sandwiches and any random assortment of specialty food that may be in that area for the convention. Don't leave it under the table overnight and not throw it away. Not everybody gets a trash can at Comic-Con, but just don't leave it there, because then we got to smell it all day long. And number one thing that could happen, it falls over, randomly from wherever you have it, and it lands in my stuff. And suddenly I've got drinks or food or something else in my materials or my original art or whatever's going on. Don't use talking crap about your neighbor's stuff as a selling point. I don't care if you're published, not published, or somewhere in between. Don't purposely talk louder and talk crap about the person next to you. I've seen this happen from everybody on the level, where they will do everything they can to talk crap about the person next to them and go, hey, don't buy from them, or at least I'm not this guy. At least I'm not doing this. It doesn't make you, that's my own real pet peeve. And last but not least, if you're a guest and you got your table for free, or you got flown in for free or anything like that, don't show up late to the con. That's been something that's happened to me with people that have driven with me to shows and stuff. And they'll be like, oh, it's fine, I'm a guest. And I'll be like, yeah, well, I paid for my space, and I don't want to be 15 or 20 minutes late to the show starting. So little things. But yeah, short version, guys, those are just some of my don't do's.
I'll say that, and Greg knows this, I have to be early to every show. I have to be there way before it opens. I'm opening up. I have to look at my table, make adjustments from the day before. And like Josh said, you all start out trying to be such good neighbors to each other, but I now have measuring tapes to make sure, and I have different setups. Do I have a shitty neighbor or a good neighbor? And depending on how that goes, depends on how I'm setting up. Because if you start pointing your art my way, or try to have your T-shirts half on my table, then yeah, I'm going to build my stuff right at the edge of my table, block you completely out as much as I can, because I'm not going to afford that. But if you're not being that way, I throw all my stuff back and I try to put it behind me most of the time. We all go there trying to make friends, but it's a business. And if you're going to affect my business, then there's going to be problems, and I'm going to act accordingly. What do you think, Austin?
It just broke up for a second. I'm sorry. Did you say me?
Yeah, I said, what do you think?
Okay. I'm sorry. So I'm lucky enough that since I've been doing that for 20 blah 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 years, I basically just tell people, I sit down and I'm super nice. I'm very excited. I look ahead of time who's sitting around me, and I introduce myself as soon as they get there. Hey, I'm such and such, such as. By the way, I got hand sanitizers, we got waters. Let me know if you need something. You know what I mean? And if they get over on my table, I'm like, hey, you know what I mean? Got her space, man. I'm gonna try to make it a joke about it. And then the people that run late, I'm not late, I'm there early. That's just kind of what I do. But there are celebrities that run late. You know what I mean? Like at C2E2, just Bob Camp was late every day, but he's Bob Camp. What you know what I mean? It is what it is. But yeah, there
will always be exceptions to the rule, for sure.
Right. One of my things that people should not be doing is it's you and maybe someone else, and then you have family friends come, which is like 5 or 6. And they're around your table, or they wander around the back of your table and they want more chairs, and they kind of sit in your area and you feel yourself trapped. And then when you say something, they get angry with you, like, well, they paid $100 some odd to get into the show, blah, 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 blah. And I say, I understand completely. That's why there's space over here. There's a green room for us if you want to go have them hang out the green room. Why don't you show them that instead? You know what I mean? And you're nice until you're not nice. Now, if there's someone that's just being a plain dick, I basically tell them, I said, you're being an asshole. What's wrong? Is there something going on? No, that's just how you are? Fine. Don't direct it towards me. If you have an issue with it, I'm more than happy to call a promoter or someone over, and we can have a 3-way conversation about it. No problem whatsoever. Why pay for my table? Fantastic. You're wasting your money then. What are you doing? You know what I mean? How you carry yourself is indicative of your brand and how people are going to approach you. They're going to approach your table, right? And approach the things that you do. And it's top to bottom across the board. And if other people are seeing said neighbor not being very nice, they're feeling the same way. But don't lower yourself and have a shouting match or this and this and this. Just very calmly say, you know what? We're having an issue. We need to get to the promoter here. Oh, we don't need to do that? Yeah, we kind of do, because I don't feel like talking about this. I've had to do that a couple of times. I've had friends of the people at the table try to argue about stuff, and I'm like, I'm not arguing with you about that. You know what I mean? If you have an issue, let's talk to the promoter. And half the time, the people behind the table are like, oh, no. They don't want to be known as someone who causes an issue because they might not be brought back or not be allowed to come back.
Austin, I'm sorry to take over, Rob, for just a second. I just want to ask Austin, how would he have handled the situation? I was at a convention, and I had set up. I've been there. I've been there Friday morning. Set up. The show started. It was a wizard show. The show started at 5 on Friday, and about 7 o'clock, a gentleman who I know showed up, and he set up. And then I noticed that the table across from him was also a company he's with. They sat up as well, right across from him. And they all came together. And what they did was they stepped outside of their booths, and they're catching traffic coming from this way and from that way.
Yeah.
And they're stopping traffic, like, and they're turning around. I mean, they're mobile. They can switch up. Maybe I'll go this way, you go that way. And what happened was, I knew in the rules, right there in the rules, it says that you cannot do that.
Yeah.
And I went to the promoter that was in charge at the time, the person in charge of the show floor. I said, hey, well, this is happening, and I don't want to say anything. I don't be the dick, but fix this. Yeah. And she said, oh, we'll look into it. About 2 hours later, she comes. Says, yeah, I looked into it. They've got 2 tables across from each other, so the rules are a little different for them. And I said, oh, okay. And it didn't dawn on me till after I went back and sat down how little sense that made about them. Well, they got 2 tables across from each other, so they can't be together. So that's why I'm allowing them to do that.
You said at the time you also said that they were sharing the same cash box.
Yeah, sharing the same cash box as well. So it wasn't like that's right, Josh. They were sharing the same cash box, so it was still trapped that mine. And that was the justification for being able to stand outside of their booths. How do you handle a situation like that?
So you talk to the said person. Well, the rules are different. Who said the rules are different? I want to talk to that person who said the rules are different.
Oh.
And then if that person says, well, blah, 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 you talk to another person. Well, we can't really talk to anybody else. Then you need to come with me. And you can very gently take me by the hand and we very gently walk over like this. And I go, here's my problem. And we all talk. I'm like, look, guys, I understand you guys are tables from across from each other. But the problem is you guys are blocking everybody else. Well, we're here to make money. Well, we are too. You look at the promoter. I'm like, they're blocking us. I'm not making money. I paid money. What are we going to do? Are you going to copy my table? What are we going to do? And you don't take no for an answer. And here's the perfect point because of that. You talk to someone till you get the answer that you want because you've invested time, money, and energy to be at this show, right? Mm-hmm. The fact that they're across tables because they couldn't be together, that's not your problem. That's their problem. They need to be able to fix it, and they're not just affecting you. They're affecting everybody on the row, right? So then you ask people at other tables, what do you think? Am I wrong? Am I in the bad here? If I am, I apologize, but this is affecting you and you and you and you and you and you, right? Yes, I am. Okay. Again, don't be confrontational. Be professional about it, right? But get the answer that you want. Don't just say, well, it just kind of is the way it is. No, not really. I was supposed to go to Heroes, and I was supposed to take a bus. A publisher was going to copy me when I got there. And I talked to the bus people, and they said, oh, no, you don't need to buy stuff ahead of time. Just go there, and you get a ticket. So I went there, and I've got my stuff with me. This was like, year 5 of breaking in. And they said, well, we don't have a bus that is traveling tonight to Charlotte. It's in the morning. I said, but you said I didn't need to get a ticket ahead of time. And there's not enough people, right? Yeah. Okay. So how are you going to fix it? Well, there's nothing we can do. We don't really have drivers. Again, you're telling me your problems. This isn't my problem. I'm here specifically because you said I didn't have to buy a ticket ahead of time. I'm going to a show here. I've got a publisher waiting for me. I've got already stuff shipped up there. I've already spent about $1,000. What are you going to do? And every 10 minutes, I'm like, how are we doing? Have we gone somewhere yet? Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, no, we can't. An hour later, they had a bus, they had a driver, and we went up there.
Yeah, I didn't make much of a fuss. I kind of dealt with it, because again, I know that I know there are some things that would have happened to me. Rob knows what I'm talking about. If I would have made a fuss there, and that was in Cleveland, I think it was, Josh.
Yeah,
Cleveland
or Columbus. No, it was Cleveland, because Columbus sucks more than Cleveland.
There would have been ramifications for me when I got back home, and even going to other cons had I put up that much of a fight. But I kind of just took on the chin, and I had a good show. It was funny too, because I noticed that the powers of that person stopped right afterwards, because Saturday Night and Happiness was behind us doing a panel, and their panels are pretty
raunchy.
Yeah, raunchy, and they were getting so mad, and they wouldn't complain, and it was funny seeing them back on the other side of it now. Well, Saturday Night Happiness, what do we do? What do you want us to do? Deal with it. But yeah, I appreciate your advice in that situation. I mean, it's long past now, but to see how you would have dealt with it is very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, just breaking in, you want to make waves because you're thankful to be at a show. You're thankful to be invited, and you don't want to, you don't want the reputation of a whiner. But if you spend $500-$600 and you're hoping to get that back, and these people are blocking that, that's my money. Mm-hmm. If you spend $500 or $600 and someone is blocking you from making that back, you're going to say something. The only reason you didn't is because it's Wizard, and you don't want Wizard to blackball you or blah 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 blah. Don't worry about that. You know what I mean? Wizard
some shows aren't worth that for sure.
Wizard has their own issues. There's so many other shows you can go to. You don't have to go to that specific one. Trust me. Stick up for yourself. You know what I mean? Yeah. But be professional. Right?
Sorry, I apologize.
No, it's okay. Just be professional how you do it. Go ahead, Josh.
No, you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. One of the things that you can do, honestly, to negate things is simply to set the standard immediately. I find that when I show up to a show and I ask my neighbor, how are you setting that up? Where are you setting this up? Like, not necessarily pointing out issues, but making them aware that I'm paying attention, making them aware that I'm a professional and I'm here to set something up and I'm here to be serious. I find a lot of times, even when I'm next to a cosplayer and I see them just putting out a mic and putting out like a speaker, I'm like, okay, guys, let's talk about volume right now. Like, I don't care how old I sound. I don't give a damn. I'm not there to have them have a great weekend because this is something they do for fun. I'm there to build a bigger audience for myself, and I need them not to have music. Because we've all seen it when you get stuck in that aisle that everyone avoids now because they think that aisle is unprofessional and they're going to be bothered by people and they're going to have people being raunchy. And I don't have anything against someone cosplaying. I have a problem with people coming to shows and using it as a hangout when they've been invited by a show. They invite 10 of their friends, and now it becomes a party, and they're not respectful of their environment around them. I was at a show where I kept telling them to turn it down, and I remember someone had said, well, I'll go talk to him, and I'm like, you really shouldn't, very loudly, and that ended it. Because I wasn't going to have them shit-talking me, and I was going to just have it be professional. And you know what? To their credit, a lot of them understood it. And there's always one or two bad people. If you can get the good people in the group on your side and go, no, he makes valid points. Because I did say what I had to say. I'm here. You guys were invited guests. You're not being professional, and you're not inviting anyone to be around you. You think this is fun. It is not. You're supposed to be walking around the event right now. That's why so many of you got the passes. Start walking around. Stop trying to hang out and play music and try to act like this is a game show. It's not. This is a serious place where people are doing business. We're trying to invite a good atmosphere. Don't be a person who affects the atmosphere. And I think Austin's right. You got to nip it in the butt. You know, you can be their friend later, but establish that guideline the minute you get there. Let them know who you are, shake hands, and let them see you're professional.
Oh, try to champion too. I mean, I'll be talking and I'll be like, you know, people are gonna look around. I'm like, have you seen this stuff? He works on this. Have you seen this person there? We have amazing artists. You gotta check out blah 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 blah. So while they're starting to spend on mine, I'm like, yeah, but if you like this, they got blah 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 and this and this, and then they in turn will start championing back and forth because we're all in this together. We're trying to make money, and it's a good vibe thing. And I learned to do that about 10 or so years ago. It's not about me, it's about we, you know what I mean? And we are trying to have these people spend money, and if nothing else, have a good time and not feel intimidated that they have to just, I can't look because I'm going to have to buy something. Because I'm like, please look, have a conversation, want to buy something, that's great. What are you into? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's awesome. I have this, but these two also have this sort of thing. So when you're done, check them out too. You know what I mean? And that goes quite a long way. And that diffuses someone trying to probably take advantage and all about them. Or if they do, it makes them look like a dick. You know what I mean? Even more so than us trying to say something. So, kill them with kindness.
I do want to talk to Greg because, Greg, you do have that very big display. I'm going to let Greg fix this phone first. Greg, I think you can still hear me while you're fixing it. Nope. Greg will be back. We'll get to the display question in a minute as soon as Greg comes back in. So let me ask you. Let's continue the conversation going. What is the proper etiquette for waiting until someone's done with the sale to begin to approach them? Because that Josh is right. Poaching is horrible, but when do you wait? Because I've had people who are literally looking at my table. And you want to have that conversation, but I've waited till the transaction was done or they walked into my space. What do you guys think about that? When is it a proper time to actually start a conversation with someone? Go ahead,
you can start a conversation. I'm like, oh, what are you getting? Oh, I'm getting this. I'm like, oh, that is absolutely amazing. I mean, I've been checking that out. People have been buying off the shelf. Again, you champion. And it diffuses them. They're like, oh, they're going to sell something. Oh, no, it's not. They're just wondering about something cool that I bought. Oh, okay. And that might have them look at your stuff and possibly start something like that. That's my sneaky trick.
And now Greg is back, so I do want to go back to that question, and we'll come back to this and the proper time to actually start talking to someone. And I do want to talk about Austin with the passings. That was a great thing, and there is a rhythm you can make. But Greg, you do have a big banner. You have this, or display, I should say. It goes up. Do you encounter people complaining? Because you don't do it in Artist Alley. You're out of Artist Alley 90% of the time in a booth space, and I don't think it matters as much there. So can you just go over the logistics of that? And you are very space conscious, and you don't try to impose on anyone else's space. So you could talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So I always get a corner booth, usually outside of Artist Alley. I get a vendor spot or an end cap someplace just for that reason, because I know I'm going to need the space. If I'm ever in a position where I feel like I'm going to intrude on somebody else's space, I'm always very hyper conscious of it. And I always say something before I set up in a certain way. And then, just to your other points about, I go there early. I meet the people around me. If you need anything, introduce myself, all that good stuff. I mean, that just seems like the basics of being, quasi-social when you're at these things. But yeah, I always get a vendor spot because I know that I've got a big display. I try not to be the highest person in the room, so I always take a look at the people around me to make sure I'm standing out, but I'm not, breaking any rules or anything. So I don't want to be known as that guy. So I try to be just, hyper conscious of how I'm being perceived across the floor. I've never had any conflicts with other vendors. I think my biggest conflicts, interestingly enough, has been when I am with, when I was starting out, I was sharing space, with some friends, and that always, there's just always things that seem to come up over the course of the show that would really get on my nerves. People setting out soda cans on the table, but behind stuff I'm like, people can still see that. Plus, if you knock it over, it goes all over my art. People like eating food where people can see. I'm like, keep your food and your drinks and all your stuff like out of sight. So I'm very conscious of what my display looks like. So every time I set up, I go around the front and I kind of like move around my spot to see how things look from different angles to make sure you can't see anything that is disruptive or not conducive to people, finding what they need or buying from me. So I always make sure my black tablecloths are clean and, make sure everything is straight, make sure my displays look nice and professional. And that's another reason I pay extra to have that space outside of Artist Alley, because, when you're in an inline booth, you can't always control who is next to you. And there's just certain people that I don't want to be next to them, not for anything personally, but professionally. I feel like my products stand apart from theirs. Like, I don't want to be next to the girl who's selling buttons and stickers and, just stuff. And I don't want to be next to the person who's sewing stuff, So knowing this early on, I just pay for the bigger spot so I can be like kind of on my corner booth. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
I've heard a promoter tell me that if you get a little upset, and he said if you guys want better treatment, pay for it. And he said, so I mean, to Greg's point, get a bigger space, and you won't have to deal with the, because Wizards done a thing where they pushed pretty much all the crafters out of Artist Alley. And I know crafters, and a lot of them, I went down their aisle once, and they were very unhappy they were all together. They did not like that. And I remember them telling me, hey, we're all artists, aren't we?
No.
Oh my God, I hate that we're all artists bullshit in Artist Alley.
Whoa.
What?
Not everyone's an artist. Not everyone's an artist, Varian. You're making a pin of Captain Marvel that you printed off of online, and you're making it at home with a button press kit. You're not an artist. That's not art. You're a thief. That you're literally printing other people's art. At least people who are making their own genuine art and drawing it, they're someone that makes sense. But if you're just going to copy something off the internet, like literally print it and put it on something, you're not an artist. Don't call yourself an artist. That's not cool. Do the work. Be an artist. It takes effort to actually be an artist. Would you not all agree with that? You just don't press print on a copier from someone else's hard work and call it your own and make it a button.
Varying answers no longer here to answer the questions. You're not gonna pick on me with these crafters. They'll be after my head.
Sorry, boys, I'm back.
No, but can't we all agree that forget the fan art thing? I'm not talking fan art, because fan art, it does have a place at cons. You know what? End of day, it does. It's not going away. It's going to be what it's going to be, and there are people making a living out of that, and I respect that. But end of day, if you're copying something off the internet from another artist and claiming it to be your own or selling it without them being involved in all, you're wrong. Can we at least agree on that? And Austin does have to go.
Yeah, I got to make dinner. I'm making chicken tacos and taco dip.
I'm coming over.
All right, don't invite
I'm on my way.
Thanks for being on.
I will leave it very, very brief, but it's one of those things where it's like,
Hey, guys.
for crafters, if I'm in Artist Alley and I'm next to artists, similar artists, then I don't see why there's an issue for crafting to be next to each other.
Well, here's and I can answer.
But that's all I'm going to say. And I was like, hey, I think all crafters should probably be together.
Well, they say that their argument is that their merchandise is too similar.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But this is the thing, and I do want to press this because Josh had asked an interesting question. Why does it matter? Here's why it matters. I have been in an aisle where there is no one who does comic books. So I've taken that free help thanks sign and I've stuck it way up, and Greg has seen this, where you could see it at any point in the actual convention center. And there's a very important thing that I put that says comics. So there's comics written in most of my materials, so people realize I'm a comic book creator. And they come down my aisle, and I've heard people say, oh, I didn't realize there were any comic book creators over here. because everyone else. I'm just going to mute you for a second, Greg, because for some reason it's giving me feedback. I'll unmute you in a second. There's this annoyingness that people look down an aisle and they don't see you right away because we're not trying to extend out, a lot of us. But all these other people have these walls and they have their buttons on a wall, their pegs are coming out. You can't see us sometimes. So if we're not putting up displays, they don't know there are comic book creators there. Meanwhile, if you put me next to 5 other comic book creators, comic book fans go right in there. And I've had people come up to me to show and go, I didn't realize there were comic book creators here. I hadn't seen them. Because, they don't want to compete with themselves. They don't belong in Artist Alley. They belong in Crafts Alley or in merchandising. Artists belong with us, the people making arts. Remember, it's a Comic-Con. And when we're at a pop show, yes, it's all different. Rules are different. But if you're at a Comic-Con, Artist Alley is for people creating comics. But I've advocated that it should be called Creator Alley from now on.
But is it? There's also the argument that it was made to me was that we all have similar items. I don't want to be next to someone else selling buttons or puppets or whatever else they're making.
And Marvel doesn't want them making money off of their stuff, but we can't all get what we want.
But my thing is, I don't want to be next to because I can't say that. I can't say I don't want to be next to Rob. He's got a comic. I got a comic too. In fact, I want to be next.
You can.
Yeah, I can say it, but it wouldn't be wise as a business to say that.
Let me tell you, when I'm near my friends, and we've done this now, every show we ask to be next to each other, we help each other, we pass to each other, we talk about it. When Greg's at the show, I tell where Greg is. Greg tells where I am. We're trying to pass to each other. When you have in a room an entire aisle of just these buttons and these knickknacks, you get lost, and people don't want to go down there. And I see it when I'm in a heavy scent place where there's just craft. No one goes down that aisle, and we see the traffic walking us by because it's not interesting. Yeah, something might call to them, but some of these people are legitimately looking for comic book creators and comic book content, and then they're seeing it on the guest wall where the comic creators are, and they're just assuming, I guess this is all there is, because now these craft people have been allowed in our area, and there is more craft people than there are actually anything else, and that's a huge problem. So that's me on my soapbox, as Randy would say.
And we are on a lot of their shows.
Oh, we're not allowed. No, I've applied to be a dick. I've applied and been rejected now. So anytime they tell me about them, I'm gonna be like, "Well, how come I can't go to a craft show if I'm an artist like you?"
You can't go. It is. And they've also started now making, because I've seen some things happen with crafters that were either it was genius or it was just them being really shisty, where they'll partner up for artists. So they'll say, hey, Josh, can I hang out with you? We'll do a corner booth. And I got an artist here with me. I've seen crafters put together a crappy comic just so they can be in an Artist Alley, just so they can also put their little tchotchkes on the table and say, hey, look, I'm selling stuff. I'm an artist. I got a comic book out. They've tried all types of things. So I see conventions now actually saying books, prints only.
Well, I think I'll leave the crafter real quick, real short, but then I got to say some quick stuff on displays because I've made some errors in the past before on the do's and don'ts list. But with crafters, I think short and simple. I'm okay with having their own section, and I think that because it's a different material production, even if it's, hey, I have to produce every single one of these one at a time, maybe charge a little more just because it's going to be a higher priced item because of that. And in some cases, maybe lesser price because of those buttons. But as far as like do's and don'ts for cons, I have been a person with a large wall. I have been.
Hold on, Josh. Can I just ask Greg if he had any comment about the actual the crafters? Because I know he's had opinions in the past, so I did want to touch with him, and then we'll get right back to you what you had.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Go ahead, Greg.
So you were asking about how I feel about crafters
being mixed in with us in Artist Alley. And basically taking away the table's affordability, because that happens. When you're able to sell merchandise with Iron Man on it, that's a belt, that's going to be more profitable than sometimes a comic book.
yeah, and you know, a lot of times people who are doing crafts are still using, you know, the exact images you've seen other artists, you know, put together. So although they're creating it using materials of their own, and they're maybe putting a lot of effort and could be highly skilled, they're still using the image of something that has already been done. You know, I can walk around, and even other artists, like I walk on by, and you know, we all use references when we draw, but the key to, I think, you know, especially fan art, is, you know, doing it in a transformative enough way to where you can still, you know, be a success at it, because you're doing something that, you know, no one has seen before in a way that no one has seen before. You know, you're doing characters that you know, just are very different from what everybody else is doing. And if you don't do it that way, if you are drawing things that other people have drawn before, using the exact same poses that people are known for, you know, Iron Man with his hand out, you know, you'll probably get through a couple of shows, but you're not going to last very long. Even if the crafter does that, how long are you going to last at shows if that's all that you're doing? So I like to think that the market will sort you out at some point if you're not bringing something new and inventive to the table.
All right, Josh, you're up. And I'm going to
no worries,
Greg, because we're getting a lot of feedback. I'll unmute you when it. Just raise your hand and I'll unmute you.
So, guys, I was just gonna say is like I have made some do's and don'ts. I've definitely made some don'ts myself as far as mistakes. And sometimes it's a mental mood. I'm not making that as an excuse. It's just one of those things where it's like, look, I don't know where I'm at mentally, what's going on with shows and creation. So I'll have music playing, and sometimes I'll play it too loud. And somebody will have to go, hey, turn it down. And I'll be like, yo, absolutely. In fact, this year I purposely invested in something so I don't have to worry about other people having music too loud anymore for my situation. As far as setup is concerned, yeah, I've gone tall, but typically it'll be something similar to what Greg was saying. Like, hey, somebody's art is very similar to mine, or it's kind of the same audience as far as that's concerned, and I'm in the middle and they're on the corner, you know. So it's an attention thing, and that's sometimes it comes down to how you choose to present yourself in presentation. And for me, I don't know. I take the good and the bad, and I learn from other people and their mistakes. And there are little things like the food thing. That's definitely something that's impacted me. And I'm like, okay, I need to make sure I don't do that ever. You know, if I don't, have a trash can, sometimes I do my best to make sure there's a bag. Or if it's a show that won't give me a trash can, and my neighbors have all left their stuff to pot, I'm not going to be the one guy who cleans up. Like I said, I've made mistakes as far as like do's and don'ts for Comic-Con. But that's all I really wanted to say is like, hey, I'm not the guy who's like, oh yeah, no, I'm always this. I'm always going to be in the middle. I'm working comics, but I'm also selling fan art. I'm going to have some shows, I'm going to have a large display. Some shows it's going to be a small display. That's all I wanted to say. So thanks for that moment. I appreciate it.
Varian, your display pisses people off sometimes. How do you deal with that? Because I know you told me that you have gotten the complaints about your display.
Yeah, I've got
distracting, and that someone's an epileptic, and you're going to cause them to seize.
Yeah, and you know what? I take all of those things very seriously. There's a picture of my display. It's in my graphic there. I've got 2 tablets playing videos from the comics right under the scroll bar there. It can get pretty damn irritating, I guess, if you're not ready for it. And I'm always willing to change stuff. I mean, there's a difference in between, hey, this is a medical situation. This could be inducing a seizure or a type of epileptic episode in someone. I get that. Versus, oh my goodness, I can't shine around you. I can't. Everyone's looking over at you. There's a big difference in that, and people tend to kind of sweep the floor is mine. People tend to sometimes want to go complain. Like, again, I got two 10-inch tablets running videos of my comics in the company. It's on a loop. It's like a 40-minute video on a loop. I got my shirts. I got my hats on my company's logo on it. We got our comics. I got prints up there. I've got some swag from the company. You can see the flash drives and the pop-up cups and the tipsy gnomes and all kinds of stuff, and the free candy. But this, people will tell you, your scroll bar hurts my eyes. Oh, it does? No problem. Unplugged. I'm having a migraine. No problem. Unplugged. And I'll even go talk to the person right across from me. And I'll ask them, hey, is that okay? I've done it before. I've gone over preemptively and asked, is that going to be a problem? Does that hurt your eyes? I'm sorry. If it does, I can, I can't adjust the brightness on that particular model, but what I can do is unplug it. So I'm always open to do that for somebody. It's not a problem. But you have to understand that sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it could really be, I don't like your design because it's taking focus from my stuff to yours, and I don't like it. And this was like the messiest my design ever got, by the way. This is extremely messy. There's also, you can't tell, but on the very top there's two arrows that point down to the logo. It's a lot of lights.
I think this was the era when I was using the bicycle light with the rapid eye movement instead of the spotlights, the proper production lights. So
yeah,
I totally get occasionally that person be like, hey, you're going to cause a seizure or this. But what's interesting about lighting is another topic, choosing to light something or choosing not to. Sometimes you end up with shows with bad stuff.
Yeah, well, I do want to touch on the lighting though, because that's a great point. I was going to say this. Two things: medical is bullshit. Sometimes you got to the person that you're hearing it from. I was at a show, and actually, Greg and Varian have seen Jax at a show. He's a pretty well-behaved child. Forget the autism. In general, I get compliments. I go to this one show, and he's being a kid. And he's making a little bit of noise, but he's nothing bad, honestly. And I would yell at him when it gets bad. This was nothing bad. He was just being a kid. This girl goes, well, excuse me, I have a nervous disorder. I can't hear loud sounds. So I'm like, I feel bad. I genuinely feel bad. And I start like hushing my boy and walking away from my table, losing sales because I feel like I'm being this rude neighbor. And it's important to me. So I'm walking him around, trying to get him a little worn out, let him get his stuff out. I come back and she's vaping inside the building, which is now illegal, and it's pot. She's got a music in her ears, and I start realizing to myself, wait a minute, you're at a con. How could you be at a con if loud sounds are bothering you? Mm-hmm. And anyone else is walking around? It was clearly just that there was a kid there, and she didn't want to deal with the kid. And she showed up late every day. She didn't pay attention to anyone, and she was doing her fan art thing. And I was like, like she's telling people, I invented this character to be this way, and saying things like that about Captain America. And I'm like, you invented Captain America? Like, you have to realize some people are just full of shit. But the lighting, oh my God, lighting can be a very bad thing. And for the artists listening, make sure you're never pointing into someone else's booth, because I've had that. And it's real easy to get up like an adult and just be like, hey, buddy, excuse me, ma'am. That light is shining right in my eyes. Could you just do me a favor and point it inward? And they'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. But, like Greg said, walk outside for a minute. Walk outside, walk to the sides of your booth and try to do it. Be the neighbor who takes advantage of not having to have someone tell you you're doing something that's offending them. And I've had people like, again, I had a person who told me, we brought pizza, and she's like, oh, I can't stand the smell of pizza. And I'm like, what the okay, whatever. So we took the pizza away and we hid it down further down and all that. And then she has her boyfriend sitting there vaping and smoking. That's okay inside, where now I have a child that's got to smell your vape. But wait, pizza bad? So grain of salt when it comes to people's complaints. We're in a public space, not a private one. When I go to your house, I won't bring pizza. When I'm in public in a place that sells pizza, I'm going to eat pizza. What do you think, Greg?
With so many different types of people in such close quarters, I'm very surprised that the people that you described would have felt strongly enough about those things to complain. I mean, it's not your fault that they are hyper or overly sensitive to anything. So if anybody comes to me with any of that sort of thing, say, gosh, I'm really sorry for you that you don't like that smell. But I'm going to eat my lunch. I'm not going to make any apologies or any efforts to go out of my way for something that you could have avoided if you just, you didn't come, I don't know, put some cologne under your nose or something, like whatever you need to do to get through the day. That's your hardship. Like, I don't know why they feel the need to involve us in something that they, clearly can control. I've never had any of those conflicts, but I've seen them go on. I'm like, wow, these things really do happen at shows. But I've never had to say anything to anybody about any of that stuff. Like I said, I'm pretty easygoing at shows. I get my own space. I'm usually not cramped, so I don't have to smell other people's stuff and see other people's things. So I've seen you deal with it enough, though, for sure.
Yeah. And I start out and this is the golden rule about Rob, and Varian can verify that. I start off as a pretty nice guy. Like, I don't try to rock the boat. I'm very nice, and then you make me angry. And then you get to see the horns. And I like the people who, like the first time she said about the pizza, I felt bad. I saw her husband smoking with the vape. So I turned around right away. I'm that guy. I'm like, excuse me, could you not vape? I know that you're conscious of pizza smells being awful. That causes cancer right now, what he's blowing in the air, and I have a child here. I'd appreciate if you followed the law and went outside. I mean, granted, we weren't going to be friends after that, but the next day I ate my pizza and I didn't hear a fucking word. Because
Look,
I think. Go ahead, Greg.
Sorry, just to jump in, vaping and smoking that's an entirely different animal. I mean, not only is it illegal, but it's harmful to the people around you. So if you're doing things that are harmful to the people around you without any thought or common sense, that's pretty ridiculous. That's something that I might say to the person, like, you need to not be doing that. Like, and it needs to stop immediately, or else, I'm going to escalate that pretty quickly. And just like you, I'm easygoing. I don't like to rock the boat either. But when it comes to something like that, people should not be exposed to dangerous chemicals like that.
Yeah. Do you know what the worst thing you can say to me? I don't see the big deal. You know why that bothers me so much? Because if you're saying it's not a big fucking deal, why won't you just do what I'm asking you? Because you don't think it's a big deal. So admit you think it's a big deal if you're going to have this conversation. Don't tell me it's not a big deal, because clearly you think it is, because you don't want to comply. I had someone go, "What are you, the police?" I was like, "No, I'm just the guy. I'll walk right over to the guy running the event and have your ass kicked out." Nothing? No, we're done? Okay, cool. I don't care. I am that guy. And maybe I'm wrong, but after you've done enough of these shows, you just don't have time for the bullshit. You don't want these people to come back and do this, because if they're doing it to you, they're doing it to all your friends. And I have to deal with the perfume ladies that swim in fucking perfume, that put so much on that actually Josh's and Greg's art will start to wilt and actually bend up because the perfume smells are so bad. And I'm actually it gives me a migraine. I have to sit there and eat it, because and technically it's against the rules. You're not supposed to have any strong smells. And also the candle people, all of that I have to sit and eat it for, because they let them in. But I don't have to sit and eat the bullshit from someone who's being obnoxious and smoking and breaking a law. That's not something I'll ever have to tolerate. So what do you think, Josh? You've been too quiet. You vaping shows? Are you vaping? Are you vaping, Josh?
No, I'm not vaping.
All right.
I think there's a level between common sense and common decency, and a lot of people will tend to forget those things. We have this bad habit. Even this discussion, we've been kind of personalized. We focus on ourselves or what our own pet peeves are, and it's very true. We live in a very me culture. While we do try to look out for other people, there's only so much you can do. I do believe that as conditions to continue to develop for anxiety or whatever have you, that there will always people who, for a little bit of vulgarity, will take the piss, and they will take too much. They will go, oh, well, I have to have this. I have to have a dog, and I have to have this and this and this. And if you're not okay with it, then you're persecuting me. I mean, in short, while I can be sympathetic for that, for people's conditions, I do believe that if we have our own conditions and we have to adapt and obey the rules, then other people should as well. And when you apply that to Comic Cons, it could be vaping, it could be hey, leaving a mess, it could be going back to what we were talking about before, going out in the aisles and selling. These are going to be those things where people, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And sometimes you have to be that person at the inch and go, hey, man, this ain't cool. It's learned behavior. That's the other part of it.
And I'll say this, if you're at a Comic-Con and you're selling out of a book bag, you're an asshole. You're just an asshole. I mean, Varian talked about the guy who thinks it's funny to set up a table and draw people and try to charge it in the middle of aisles. I would power bomb him through the table and tell everyone it was just performance art and walk away.
Well, it's a little table. He keeps it on his back. He carries it on his back, and he
has anybody mentioned music? Others playing music at their. Have we?
Josh did. We covered it on both sides of it, the good and the bad.
That's the
people are like blasting away, or sometimes it's just the volume.
Yeah, if I can't hear people across the table, or if you're gonna, force me to listen to the same song all day long, it gets annoying. I do put up with the music unless I can't hear somebody across the table or they can't hear me. That's when I kind of have to maybe ask for some changes. But
on the theme of that music, a guy got very upset with me watching Eric's table. Just for a brief moment in South Dakota, he walks from there. Excuse me, buddy, could you cut that down? And I said, "Oh, it's not mine. I'm just watching this table." Because Eric listens to a lot of Japanese rock music, or intro music, or anime music from animes. Yeah, from music from animes when he's at the shows. And the guy didn't like it. I guess from his standpoint, you're hearing music all day, you can't understand the words. Some people are like, "What the hell am I listening to?" And I'm like, "It's not mine." But the guy, funny enough, he didn't come back and bother Eric. He didn't bother Eric at all. He only came over when I was there. And then when I left, he didn't go back over there. I'm like, "No, he'll be back." He went to the bathroom. I'm just watching his table for him. So that is that type of stuff. That and not having a table and walking in with your posse, walking through the convention trying to sell your comics, or your prints. That's a pet peeve of mine.
I will say this, and I know Greg will agree with us on this. I am not the type of person to accept it. I think Greg kind of tells me things like, well, this guy's saying something. I think he wants me to go over and say something because he knows I'm a confrontational person. I'm like, Greg, just tell me who he is. But yeah, if you're playing music too loud, the first time you ask, you should turn it down. I play music that time too, because like Josh said, sometimes headspace. You're just having a bad day. You're on the road. You didn't have a great yesterday. It's today, and you need to make your money. And your neighbor came in, and they're being super loud in the morning when you have a headache, and you want to kill the world, but you know it's your fault. So you gotta get your groove on. You gotta listen to some music. And I totally understand, especially when you have a wild beast traveling with you named Jax. Sometimes you need a mellow moment. Greg, how have you, would you say, because I know you're having trouble, just so you guys know, Greg is having a little trouble hearing both of you. We're trying to go through the audio thing, and I just want to say to Greg, they were talking about the music and how it can be annoying. To go up on that, I want to start with Greg, because you're not going to hear what they're going to say possibly. So we're going to start with you. The music can be loud. What about the barkers? What about the people trying to use PAs and megaphones to talk over you? How does that affect your business, and what do you think about it? We'll start with Greg, go to Josh, go to Varian.
I only encounter it every so often, but it's very noticeable. So it's usually like the people who are not like Comic-Con people. It's usually like the fudge guys that are shouting about their free samples or something like that. And I try to just shoot them looks like, hey, you guys should know better, but it doesn't really work. So a lot of it's just me kind of putting up with it. I try to have a dose of grace for other people because we're in close quarters. We're all just trying to get through the show and everybody be successful. But the barkers can get pretty annoying. I don't like when they're near me and they're shouting and people are kind of rushing past them just to get through the aisle, because then they don't stop at my booth. or if I'm talking to somebody and they're shouting, kind of within earshot, and it's kind of disruptive to our conversation, I might have to say something like that, under those circumstances as well. But for the most part, it's not really a problem. But every so often, I do run into that.
Josh?
I have a very competitive nature when it comes to Comic Cons. When there are people around me, as far as that's concerned. So, without giving life history, my first job was cutting down trees, and so the ability for me to be loud and have my voice carry is something that was developed from a very young age without having to yell. So whenever there are barkers, occasionally I will toss in a few of my jibes and remarks of their phrasing, and occasionally, if they decide to try to pull a customer from me in that capacity, I'll suddenly, do a little bit of a banter about the nuts while they're selling the nuts. It's a positive thing. I'm not trying to steal their customer. I'm just trying to upsell them and let them know that I've had to listen to them repeat something over and over and over and over and over and over and over again to the point that it's been memorized. But I prefer to try to go for the more positive aspect when I can, as much as I can. Even if they're a little bit of a pest, I will do what I can for the free sample people and stuff like that. I'll be like, "What you got? What you got? I'm hungry. Help me out. Hey man, how come I ain't got no free samples? I've been here all day. You didn't give me any free samples. I'm giving it to them. You never know. I might buy $80 worth of beef jerky. You don't know. You don't know me. Sometimes it's just turning a negative into a positive."
Now, I've tabled near Varian. Oh my God. Just so loud. So loud. He's like, "Hey, baby, why don't you shake that over here?" And the guys are looking at him like, "Why are you talking to me that way?"
Yeah,
they don't understand it. No, Varian, go ahead.
This is my favorite Varian pose at his table.
I know that you're from an area where being louder than everyone else is encouraged up there in Michigan. Like the goal is to out yell the other person. So I want you to talk about that.
Yeah, here it's a little different. You get a lot of carnival barkers. You get a lot of, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing?" I recall a guy walking past my table, and he stopped. He looked at my stuff, and I ended up looking at. He had something funny on his T-shirt, which gave me a genuine laugh. I commented on his T-shirt. He stood there for another 10 minutes. He bought a ton of stuff from me, about $60 worth of merchandise, and he left. And the guy who was standing next to me at his booth, he's a friend of mine, but an acquaintance, I should say. Well, ever since then, I think he thinks commenting on a T-shirt is a secret sauce, because someone will be walking down the aisle, and he's like, "Nice shirt, nice shirt." And it's like that Keenan, was it a Key and Peele shirt? Nice. And he just keeps trying to get people over to his table, and it doesn't work for them. But yeah, being loud for some reason here seems to be the thing. Can I get louder than this guy next to me? I don't do it. I don't carnival bark. I let you come to the table, talk to me, but it's really, I get mad. I've heard it. We got Paris here. Paris, the best part of Paris' stick is that he will stand up and say, "I got dollar comics for $1." And he'll hold them up, and they're these little small, mimeograph comics that he's made. But he shouts, and you can hear him all over the convention center. "Comics for $1, comics for $1. I got dollar comics. They're hilarious." And you hear this guy, and you don't mind, because that's his Paris sell. But for me, I don't like it. I mean, I don't like it when my neighbor's doing it, being loud, being obnoxious. And I will, I don't have to say much, because I have an Italian wife who goes from 0 to 60 very quickly, and she's the one who usually speaks up and says, "Hey, cut it out, please," or "Could you be quiet?" So yeah, that's how that works.
I do know that I have a naturally loud voice. I don't mean it. And Greg's heard me probably a couple times. If I get excited, it's like God is talking, and I start yelling, because I've made people, like, where I'll yell at Jax when he's running away from me. I'm like, "Jax, come here." And the whole aisle will stop because I'm yelling for my boy. So I know I have to be mindful of that. I have to be mindful that my voice projects, and I have a booming voice. So I try to be. If you ever at a con, and Greg can see me at the table, I try to talk like this. I start taking the bass out of my throat, and it actually hurts me to do that to my own throat because it's unnatural. And I do that to try to be a good neighbor. And then you have someone with a megaphone over next to you going, "We got toys here, toys." It's like, did they not know with the big display of toys? Did you think you weren't getting them with a big display of toys? It is, to me, one of the worst things ever. I don't mind anything other than cosplayers being crazy and people trying to yell and scream at a show because it just feels invasive. It's and like Josh said, this is personal. But if I'm playing by the same rules as everyone else, why do you get to break the rules? Because then if we're breaking rules, shit, there's so much I can do. I'm going to come over and set up on your table and just see what you say because I don't care anymore. Let's see what happens when Rob's fetish books are on your table next to your kids' books. We'll see how you like it.
Have you guys ever had a situation or something that you were doing that you found, you know what, I'm not doing that anymore. I think I wasn't taking my neighbors in consideration. For me, it was an air horn. Like, oh, every time we make a sale, we're going to squeeze the air horn. That lasted all of 2 times. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm doing that.
This is bad. This is bad.
Yeah.
The one that haunts me to this day, because I was doing my best to, you know, try to exhibit as well, and I was guesting to teach some art classes and things like that. And I moved my speaker, and this is pretty much what made me decide to ditch my speaker afterwards because it haunted me. I put it underneath a rotating display. Well, what I discovered is that made an echo chamber. But during setup, I had this guy who came. He was like, "Hey man, can you turn it down?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I turned it down halfway. And he came back over and he's like, "It's still too loud. You need to turn that down, or do we need to get somebody involved?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, man. I did turn it down like over half. I'll do what I can." And I ended up moving the speakers, the short version. But that in itself, I tried to come over and be like, "Hey, man, I apologize, even though I guess I'm trying to be this." He thought I was trying to throw my weight as a guest. And I was like, "No, I wasn't trying to do that. I was just trying to apologize." And go, I was just in my setup in my headspace, and I was just trying to get ready for the show. I apologize. You know, and it rubbed off into basically he told me to go F myself or go screw myself. And I told him to have an awesome day, you know, in a very retail fashion. You know, I hope he had a great con. And then he sat there at the con just sitting behind his display looking at a cell phone. But that's a side note. But yeah, so my mistake was I had my music playing and it was way too loud. And I've since abandoned it as far as a theme for when I go and exhibit at shows.
All right, hold on. Greg, Varian asked, was there something that you once did that you no longer do because you realized it was wrong? Like a rookie mistake. Was there an early rookie mistake you did that you regret doing and no longer do?
An early rookie mistake. Yes. So if I have a particular piece that I know that somebody's going to buy because there's a certain guest or a theme or some reason that I should bring that piece to that show, or at least more of it, because I know how well it's going to do, time of year, movies coming out, whatever the case may be, I always thought I did a really good job of figuring that, you know, planning ahead for that. And yet still, I would say even last year, as late as last year, I would show up and be like, man, William Shatner's at this show, and for some reason, I don't have any of my Captain Kirk stuff. Like, how did that happen? How in the world did that happen? So then I'm scrambling to find a printer, deciding if it's worth it to Uber to the printer, if they can have it done in time, if it's going to be the quality that I need, all that good stuff to say, you know what, Greg, you should know by now. You should know by now that, all right, no, you're not going to do it. This is the price you're going to pay for not being a good business person that's not on this opportunity.
Yeah, but Greg, we're not talking about you pissing yourself off. We're talking about you pissing other people off. No. I don't think at least nothing that no one has told me. So no one's ever complained about that giant pirate sale of yours, that wall of doom. No one ever.
Not besides you.
You'll find a lot of people when they're. Oh, sorry, Greg.
No, I was gonna say there's one person, me.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've never put it up in a way that I block other people or anything like that. Again, I'm hypersensitive to that. I'm not like, I mean, Josh, you're a guest, man. You're a big deal. I have to pay for my spot, so I feel
I pay for majority of my spots. It was only with Wizard. Sorry.
I knew what I said was going to come out wrong. What I meant to say was like, I feel lucky to be at these shows, even though I'm probably paying more money than I should for what I get. Like, I'm nervous and anxious before every show, and I know a lot of artists probably have those feelings to some degree. But when I get to the show, I'm just so nervous about, I don't know, about being invited back and just everything that I'm hyper aware of my stuff and how it looks. And I've never had a problem with somebody saying, oh, your thing is too big or it's too high or it's blocking my stuff. Like I haven't been doing this as long as you guys, but I've never had any problems other than Rob giving me a hard time.
This is my impression of being behind Greg. Got
So what I was gonna say is that you'll find the people that want to talk crap about the large banners are of two breeds. One, they don't know where to get the tripods, and they don't want to take the time to research it or even ask people. And then the other kind of person are just the people that are having a bad show and they want to blame it on those people. From my experience, at least, it's always going to be one of those two types of breeds of people. They either want to just talk shit behind someone's back, or they want to, they just want to have something to blame. Oh, it's because of this guy that's next to me, and it'd be like, you know what? Honestly, they might just be making more eye contact, and they might be talking. They may not be sitting there on their cell phone, all weekend long.
An honest question: is there such a thing as too tall and too big? There was a guy at a recent show, and we called it the Wall of Metallica. He had the double booth, and he had a sail, and I'm not kidding. This sail went up about 30 feet. There was no seeing anyone besides this guy with what he had set up. He blocked the entire thing, and I was kidding about the shadow that Greg left. No kidding. This guy literally left a shadow onto people behind him because his sail went so high into the sky that it literally got to where the lights could actually cast a shadow now behind it. Is there too tall then? Is there too big of a display when you're going to be, because the big new metallic prints, and I'm not kidding, 30 feet into the air. No one could see anything if you were looking dead on into that aisle.
I don't think there's I think the concern that comes in safety at that point. Is this going to tip over and spill out into the aisle? And especially if it's metallic prints, is it going to hurt somebody when it comes down? I don't know if you guys have ever been cut by one of those things, but it's not pretty. And so, yeah, I would definitely be concerned about that. But you know what? If you're against a wall, especially, go ahead, go up as far. You're the one who's going to limit yourself, because I can't see all the way up there.
Now, it should be noticed most shows do have regulations that they don't follow in their contracts about the height of it. Most of them
depends on who you are.
But I have had them actually come and complain about my sale because I'll put it on my table and it goes pretty high up. And of course, I think it's because it says free hugs and spanks. And I'll always go, well, are you telling that person? Oh, it'd help if you saw me do it. Have you told that person over there about their height? Have you told that person? And suddenly it's crickets. And it's like, is it what it says that's bothering you? Oh, no, it's not that. Then I'm like, then when they lower their stuff, I'll lower mine. And it's just, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to live to the standard that you're setting for everyone here. I don't necessarily care because, like I said, I'll put my sale up and I've learned, like Josh says, you adapt or die. You figure it out. You make your way to make it work and you get seen. So if Josh is going to put up and Greg's going to put up a giant wall, that's what I came up with. I found my sale, found a way to get it on my table, and it stretches into the air 30 feet where people can see it sometime. Well, not 30. I hope. I'm working on 30. Yes, it would be high. But, you do what you got to do, and you get it done, and you don't complain. And I think that's being a good neighbor. If it's not if it's just you think they're blocking you, oh fucking well, find a way to get it done. As far as the mistake I made, I used to stand outside my table handing out business cards when someone else was behind my table. I never saw it as intrusive because I always tried to stay in the aisle whenever I was closer to the end or stay in front of my table. I didn't realize till later that people are intimidated when someone's outside their table, and it's actually against the rule too. Richard Rivera taught me that. He said, don't be that person. Don't interfere with people. Learn to read people. Don't interfere with the flow, the natural flow. If they're stopping to talk to you, that's one thing. But when you're standing there, you're now causing them to alter their course. Don't be that guy. And we've all gone to a show, and this is something I hate, and we'll end the show on this one. What do you guys think about the person who literally stands in front of someone and goes, yo, come see my comic. I got this comic. You got to see it. You got to see it. And they don't let a person go by. I call them the muggers at the cons. They're literally going to make you buy their book. I have had people literally come up to my table and go, I honestly bought it because I thought that was the only way to get out of there safe. Like, look traumatized. And you could tell they were going to go home and throw the comic out. They bought it just to buy their free
away. Yeah. I know a company, that's their policy. That's their standard.
You got to come on. Who is it? Who is it? Come on, Ray. Come on.
I bought a comic because, I got a free burrito out of it once, but,
Did you?
Yeah.
Was the burrito good?
A free burrito, man. That's worth it.
Was it a good burrito?
It was Chipotle. So.
Oh, okay.
It was back when Chipotle was brand new.
Hey, there we go.
That was a marketing sale. I definitely, was like, free burrito? Okay, I guess I'll take this comic book.
Did you read the comic?
I did. This is early freestyle comics as far as that's concerned. So there were some things that weren't quite good, but you know what? It's been 10 plus years at this point. So we've all kind of grown and adapted, but I constantly make that joke with him. We're like, hey man, you gonna go out and sell some hot dogs with your comics? Gonna go out on the aisle and just be like, get your comics here, free hot dog with every purchase. Like I said, we've all grown. So, yeah. But this has been fun.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone being here. We're at 2 hours and 6 minutes, so it's time to say goodbye. We'll start with Greg because he won't be able to hear Varian saying goodbye, so I don't want to have that problem where he doesn't know when to start talking. So, Greg, tell them about your wall of doom. Tell them about where they can follow you.
Follow me. Let's see. At Greg Krivak is my Instagram. Arts by Greg Krivak is my Facebook page. My website is www.gregorykrivak.com. My last name is spelled K-R-I, V as in Victor, A as in Apple, C as in Charlie. So, thank you for having me. I'm in great company with you gents. I feel honored to be part of the conversation. So, Rob, thanks very much for inviting me. Varian, sorry I couldn't hear you, brother, for a lot of it, but hopefully I will see you guys at some shows, maybe over the summer or in the fall.
We can all hope so. We're going to go to Varian, so Greg's going to hear nothing for about 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Wow, I got that long outro. Hi, everybody out there. My name is Varian Grant. You can find me at kid_V on Twitter, where I talk about comics and art and all that fun stuff. Then I draw and I do all that type of stuff. Again, I'm a publisher at Last Call Comics. You can find that on any social media platform you want, as well as lastcallcomics.com. Also the founder of IndieVolt Media LLC, IndieVolt.com, IndieVolt TV, and IndieVolt Radio as well. Find me on there. Find me on Facebook, my personal Facebook, where I guess I got to monitor it now because I just made a post that is divisive. Didn't know that. So maybe don't follow me on Facebook right away. Maybe wait a day or so.
Did you see the post I made today?
I didn't see it. I should go check. But yeah, please follow me on social media. I'm around to talk.
All right, Greg, you're actually going to hear this guest. This is Josh Lyman, of course. Give a shout out. Not only did he do cool graphics for this show, which you guys are going to be seeing for months now, so you can thank him for the awesomeness that is this, but also, and here it is, check out that art now available as an alternate cover on the Cat Dad and Supermom comic book, which just blew me away. I love seeing a different approach to the characters that we have, and you really nailed it in a new, fun way. and it made my mind turn. Anytime I see something in a different way, I'm like, wow, that's really beautiful. So thank you publicly. I've privately thanked you. I wanted to publicly thank you on the show for all you've done for us at Comic Book Advocates, and thank you for what you've done for me with Cat Dad and Supermom.
Well, thank you. It's a little thing, but honestly, Comic Book Advocates and its predecessor name has helped keep me a little bit sane as my world has shifted from doing conventions. So I truly appreciate that. But on a less somber note, guys, you can find me on social media at Art of Josh Lyman. That includes Instagram, Twitter, and of course, Facebook. Facebook, I do live drawings pretty much at least once a day. Sometimes it's traditional and sometimes it's digital. And you guys can find me occasionally on Indie Vault as well as Comic Book Advocates. Occasionally get to, give my 2 cents or, the dime worth of information. So thanks again for having me.
All right, guys, it's been a great show today. We talked about some great stuff, and that's what's awesome about this and what I miss most about being on the road is a lot of times we just sit around and bitch about this stuff during a live show. I miss that ability to actually just connect, get that burger after a show. Where's everyone eating? Let's go over there and all hang out and see what this city's got for us to do. So I'm going to let you all go, and hopefully we're looking at a Comic-Con starting very soon. Fingers crossed. MegaCon's actually,
yeah, I just got that email today, too.
Yeah, MegaCon's moving forward.
Disney's supposedly going to try and open it limited operation as well. But
yeah,
side note.
We're hoping it's far enough away, but close enough that there's light. So please support everyone online. But let's get back to normal as soon as we can, so we can get back on the road talking about comic books and art. And Varian can show off some last call comics, girls. One thing Varian didn't say is 9 p.m. today. He has, of course, Indie Volt Radio and live streaming the most educated panel in comics, and that's insulting but true. Sometimes the insult is on purpose. That he has the smarter lady with him, and they do a better job than I do. And I hope to be there tonight talking about Cat Dad and Supermom. So come check out the show tonight, 9 p.m. And let's make Indie Volt's numbers rise to 20,000, 20K tonight, guys.
20K. Yeah, Randy's a smart one. He's the educated one in the bench. I'm just the guy that says what. Wait a minute, I'm the conductor.
Guy kicking the gate open and going, everyone in.
Yeah.
All right, so this has been a production of the Comics Advocate Network. We thank you for tuning in and remind you all to be kind and share. We'll see you on the next program tomorrow at 4 p.m. Another amazing on-con production. Bye, everybody.